Welcome, everyone, to a very special Storytime Explainer. We're about to go on a totally magical midnight journey, traveling way, way back in time to the ancient kingdom of Ujjain. Our explainer today is all about a super famous brave king, a mysterious laughing spirit, and a really important choice made by a simple woodcutter. So go ahead and get comfortable, open up those ears, and get your imaginations ready because we are stepping right into a world of magic and mystery.
Okay, picture this. Long, long ago, the extremely wise and courageous King Vikramaditya made a very big promise to a mysterious sage. And to keep this promise, he actually had to walk into a dark, spooky forest right in the dead of night. I mean, just imagine being there. The wind is howling, the forest is otherwise completely silent, and owls are crying out in the deep darkness. The king was on a mission to find a spirit named Betaal, who was literally hanging upside down from this giant, ancient banyan tree. But King Vikramaditya? He wasn't scared at all. Without even a flinch, he lifted that spooky spirit right onto his shoulder and just started walking.
Now, as the king was carrying him, Betaal let out this creepy little laugh and said, "Vikram, our journey is pretty long. Let me tell you a story." But Betaal had a really strict rule for this game. He told the king in this booming, totally playful voice, "Remember, if you know the answer to my question at the very end of my story and you still remain silent, your head will shatter into 1,000 pieces." Talk about high stakes, right? But the brave King Vikramaditya just kept walking, totally quiet, as the spirit launched into his magical tale.
Chapter 1. The Poor Woodcutter's Tears.
So, Betaal's story begins in a small, quiet village with a really poor woodcutter named Ramaya. Every single day, this guy earned his living by chopping firewood out in the forest to sell. It was super hard work. Well, one day, while he was chopping a tree right on the edge of a really deep river, a terrible accident happened. His iron axe, which was literally his only tool, slipped right out of his hands. Splash! It fell right into that deep, dark water and sank straight to the bottom. Ramaya just sat down on the dirt riverbank and started to cry. He was so incredibly sad and desperate. He sobbed out loud, "This axe is all I have. How will I feed my family now?" Because without his axe, he just couldn't work, and his family was going to go hungry.
Chapter 2. The Magical River Goddess. But then, while Ramaya was crying, the water suddenly started to bubble and glow, and out of nowhere, a magical river goddess appeared right in front of him. Now, she really wanted to help the poor woodcutter, but she also wanted to test his heart first. So, step 1, she held up this beautiful, shining golden axe. "Is this your axe?" she asked. Ramaya looked at all that gold. I mean, he could have been rich for life. But, he replied completely honestly, "No, goddess, that is not mine." So, for step 2, the goddess dipped back into the water and pulled out a sparkling silver axe. "Is this yours?" she asked him. Again, Ramaya just shook his head. "No." Finally, for step 3, she reached down into the river one last time and brought out his plain, old, worn-out iron axe. You should have seen Ramaya's face. It just completely lit up. He smiled so big and pointed right at his old tool. "Yes, that is not axe," he cheered. Even though it wasn't super fancy or expensive at all, it was his, and he told the absolute truth. So, what do you think the goddess did next? Well, she was literally so thrilled with Ramaya's honesty. Because he didn't try to just take the gold or the silver, she decided to really reward him. She didn't just give him back his one iron axe. No way. She gave him all 3 axes, the gold, the silver, and the iron one. Ramaya went home that day a very, very happy and wealthy man. Chapter 3. The Greedy Neighbor's Trick. Now you know how word travels. A few days later, one of Ramaya's neighbors heard the whole story about the magical goddess and that shiny golden axe. But listen, this neighbor, he wasn't a good or honest guy at all. He was incredibly greedy. He wanted all that gold for himself, and he definitely didn't want to do any hard work for it. So this greedy neighbor sneaks right down to the river and deliberately throws his own axe straight into the deep water. Splash! Then he sits down and totally fakes crying. Sure enough, just like before, the magical goddess appears. She holds up the shining golden axe and asks, "Is this your axe?" And you guys, the neighbor didn't even wait 1 second. He gets these huge greedy eyes and instantly shouts, "Yes, that's mine!" But the magical goddess was incredibly wise. She instantly knew the neighbor was just lying right to her face. And because he lied, she completely disappeared back beneath the water. She didn't give him the golden axe, and she didn't even give him back his own plain iron axe. Think about how different that is.
Ramaya told the truth and he ended up with 3 axes. But the greedy neighbor lied and he lost absolutely everything. He was left with no axe, no gold, and no way to ever chop wood again.
Chapter 4. Betaal's Tricky Question. All right, let's zoom right back to that spooky forest. The spirit Betaal was still hanging on to King Vikram's shoulder, and the king was still marching through that dark, silent night. Betaal had literally just finished telling this exact story we just heard. He leaned in real close to King Vikram's ear and he asked his tricky riddle. He said, both men lost their axes, yet one received 3 axes while the other lost everything. Why? Now, before the king answers, I want you at home to really think about it. Can you shout out the answer for us? Why exactly did the first man get rewarded and the second man get punished?
Did you guess it? I bet a ton of you hit the nail on the head. King Vikramaditya, who is super wise, finally broke his silence to answer the spirit. He said, because honesty deserves trust, while greed destroys it. The goddess rewarded the honest woodcutter, not for losing his axe, but for speaking the truth. The king completely understood that it wasn't actually about the axe at all, right? It was all about the goodness in the woodcutter's heart.
Well, the second the king answered correctly, that completely silent forest just filled with super loud laughter. Ha ha ha! You have spoken again, Vikram, shouted Betaal. And because the king had finally spoken out loud, breaking his absolute silence, the magical spell was broken too. Betaal slipped right off the king's shoulder and flew all the way back to that ancient banyan tree, leaving King Vikram to start his super long, spooky journey all over again. Chapter 5. The Golden Rule. So here is our big golden rule for today's explainer. Honesty is always rewarded, but greed ultimately leaves you with nothing. Just like our friend Ramaya, telling the truth makes you the kind of person that other people can actually trust and reward. And just like that greedy neighbor, trying to trick people is basically a one-way ticket to ending up with way less than you started with. Thank you so much for joining me on this magical explainer. I want to challenge you right now to always remember this golden rule in your very own life. Who can you be completely honest with today? Think about it. Until next time, stay super curious and always, always tell the truth.
Like, share, and subscribe for more videos.